In this video, I'll be talking about how to monitor Modbus TCP/IP status from PLX30 series gateway. If you have been following the other training video, you will be knowing how to use PLX30 and communicate with PLC using class 1 communication. I will be using PLX32 EIP MBTCP UA gateway for example here. In the add-on profile, if you look at the module definitions part, this is where you configure the class 1 communication. By default, for one I/O connections, you have 248 input and 248 integer output. This value must be the same with the values that you configure in PCB. So in PCB, under EIP class 1 connections, so these are the size that is the default one. So if you want to use other value, make sure that the values in the size of the output and input are tally with the one that you configure in your add-on profile. So for this example, I will just keep it as a default one and I'll be using just one I/O connections. And you click OK. So to check the Modbus TCP/IP driver status, we can look from two directions, either when the gateway is used as a client or the gateway is used as a server. So these are the informations that you can get from PCB Diagnostics. So you get to see the communication status of the server when you use the gateway as server, and also the communication status, the Modbus command status when you use this gateway as a client. These are the informations that we refer to when we want to monitor the status of Modbus TCP/IP driver. So in this example, this is my configurations. So in my PLX30, Modbus TCP/IP client driver 0, I have two commands over here. In Modbus TCP/IP client 1, I have another command over here. So if I want to check the status of this command or the drivers, I can go to right click, diagnostic, and I scroll down to Modbus TCP/IP client 0. Then I get to see the client 0 communication status. Get to see that there is an error on my client. And if I go to Modbus command errors, I get to see the status of every command that I configured earlier. So in client 0, I have two commands, and I can see that both of my commands are errors now. Alright, so these are how you monitor it from PCB. If let's say you need this information, you want to monitor your Modbus driver from your Rockwell PLC, you can actually move all this data to your PLC, then you do some program to give warning or to do some sequences programming from there. So to do that, so if you refer back to the manual, in our gateway actually, so we have something called output memory. So output memory is where we store the driver status. So these addresses that you cannot use it for the communication between two protocols. So for the gateway, you know that you have an internal database of 4,000 integer for the firmware before 1.005. After the 4,000, that is a place that we call it as output memory. So depends on the protocol that you are using. So this is for Modbus TCP. For client status, if you want to check the current error of the whole client driver, so you can use this, and with the offset of 8, which is 15508, you will get to see the current error of this client. So this is the status that you can get to monitor the client as a whole. So we have 10 clients for this specific gateway. If you have a lot of command and you want to check every of these command, then you can refer to Modbus TCP/IP client command list error data. These addresses will get you to see the status of every single command. In each of these clients, we support 16 commands. So if you want to check the status of the first command in client 0, then you can monitor this address, and so on until the last command of each of the driver. So all these addresses are not reachable from your gateway. If you want to move this value to your PLC, you have to use data map. Back to PCB, ProSoft Configuration Builder, we have a data map features here. This is the features for you to move data from one address to another address, no matter it's a lower memory, usable memory, or upper memory. For example here, if let's say I want to monitor client number 0, the current error, then I can move 1550 to other value that I can see on my PLC. So for example here, I already configure 1550 to 200, then put a comment, this is the client 0 current error. So this address, so how do we know where to put this address? So you have to make sure that in order for your PLC to get this value, you have to make sure that this address is a vacant free address that is from your input address. So in the class 1 connection here, you know that from 0 to 348 is input. So you can choose any of the value between this input data, then you move the upper memory status to this address, then the PLC will get to read this address because it is input data. So for example here in my configuration, I configure two. One is the client 0 current error, and then another one I want to check the specific for command number 1, command number 2 of my client 0. So the address will be from 15510, then I put 2201 because 200 have been taken by this. So the first command status will go to 201, the second command will go to 202. Then after configure this, I save it and download to my gateway. So in your PLC, so if you go to controller tab, the input, so I go to 200, then I will get to see that the current error of my client 0 is 200. The current error of my client 0, 1 address 201 is -33. The second command, I get the same error. So if either the current error of your command or the current error of your driver is not equal to 0, means that there is some error with your command, and most probably you have some network issue or your server devices is broken down or is not connected. So if you look back at my Modbus TCPIP client, I have a command which is read holding register from this IP. So this IP is my PC, so I will use a mod sim simulator to simulate the error later. If I go to Diagnostics, I will see that, so I have a -33 for that command. So now I will go to data map. So if you refer back to the manual, so you will know that for the client number 1, the command, the first command 1, the status will be 15536. So in PCB, I will add one more row. So I put 15536 over here, then I will put 203, then since I only have one command, so I'll just leave this as 1, then OK, then OK, then download from my PC to my gateway. So you can see that before download I only have 3 status, then after I download with the new data map. So if I go back to my logics, you can see that the new status have moved to address 203 as I configured in my data map. So just now I mentioned that the command number 1 of my client is actually reading from my PC. So if let's say I try to connect this mod sim, After connect means I'm simulating my PC as a Modbus server, then the client command from client 1 supposed to be success. So if I go back, then you can see that 203, which is client 1 error, is already changed to 0, means that this command is okay. So this is how we monitor the PLX30 series Modbus TCPIP client driver. If you are using PLX30 as Modbus TCPIP server, then you will need to monitor the server status data. So by default, the MBAP bus server port that we use is 502. So if this is the port that we are using, then you have to monitor the address ranging from here. So if you look at the details, you will see this offset data. So normally for Modbus TCP/IP server, we will monitor the number of requests and number of responses. If the client is successfully connecting with PLX30, which is the server, then these two counter, the number of requests and number of responses counter, will be increasing. So let's just add in one more data map here to show the example. So in the data map, I will put 6210 and I will read the whole status for this case. So this one 210, so that when you move it to the logics, you will know that 210 represent the number of command requests and so on until 219 over here. So just put this as server status and click OK. OK, and download. I will use the mod scan to simulate PLX30 as a server in this case. At first, I will not connect this. I will let you guys to see what are the changes on the logic side. After download is done, I go back to the logics. Just now, I data map the status from the output memory to 210. This is when the client is not connecting with the server yet. So I will connect to a Modbus TCP server. This is the address of my PLX30. I click OK, connect. You will see that after I connect, these are the changes that you will see, which is 213 and 214. So if you refer back to the manual, 3 and 4 is the number of requests and number of responses. In the event that my Modbus TCP/IP client disconnected, you will see that this value no longer increases. In your logics, you can do some timer to check on these two values. If let's say the value stop increasing for some second, depending on how fast you pull your Modbus data, then you can trigger the disconnections warning. So if I connect back, you can see that the value still keep increasing. This is how we monitor Modbus TCP/IP client and server status on Ethernet IP PLC.